Hi, Ray here. You know, one of the things that I always told myself I would do when I retired was to do some hiking and backpacking, and so here I am retired, and it's time to get started. So what I did was, before I went out and invested a lot of money in equipment, I had some old sleeping bags and stuff around the house here that I decided to try to use, and I just went out and did some car camping and tried to find out, do I still like to do this? And if so, then I can start investing in some new equipment. And secondarily, what are my needs in terms of equipment before I go out and start spending a lot of money on stuff that I don't need? So I think what you'll find when you see this video is mostly from an equipment standpoint, it was pretty much of a fail. But I'll take you through that. And but on the other hand, I had a lot of fun. So definitely want to get in and start doing more backpacking. And I hope you enjoy the video. And maybe you'll learn something if you're new into backpacking or you want to get started. This will help you. I sure hope so. Enjoy the video. Hiking Pier Marquette State Park. This is my buddy Brian. Doing a 5 or 6 mile hike and an overnight here.
Good day, nobody died. Right at Pier Marquette State Park. Nice sundown, beautiful evening. Probably in the 60s. A few mosquitoes out here. Other than that, it's pretty darn nice. Got a good fire going. Heating some water over there for some cocoa and tea later. And we're about to cook dinner. So in learning about backpacking, and particularly if you want to backpack and do 2 or 3 day overnights, one of the areas where I was short-sighted was with my pack. I currently have
a Lookout 40 from REI. It's a 40-liter pack, and it's a great day pack. I've had this for years, taken it on several hikes, and I like this pack a lot. But when you start thinking about putting a tent in there, sleeping bag, pad, your cook kit, your clothes, your food, first aid, all of the other things that you need to get in a pack. For me, a 40-liter pack just won't do it. Even for an overnight, it just won't do it. And now I suspect for a lot of people this is more than adequate. I am not and don't expect to be an ultralight or a minimalist camper. I think I'm going to be a little bit more about comfort. So if I can keep my total pack weight down below 30 pounds, I'm going to be happy with that. So again, another area where I was a little short-sighted in starting to think about backpacking and camping was with the pack. And heck, I guess I'm just going to have to get a new pack. I brought 2 cook kits along with me to test out on my little first camping adventure. My priority was just not to spend a lot of money on cook kits until I really knew that I wanted to continue to camp and what I'd like. One of the kits was this Amusa grease pot kit that I've seen so many videos about. The Amusa grease pot you can get at Walmart for about $5. What I like about the Amusa pot itself is that it is very light and it holds a large volume of water, aside from being inexpensive. The stove that I used is an old Svea 123 stove, comes with its own cup. This is a stove that was developed by the Swedish for their army. It's a pretty indestructible stove. It burns white gas or Coleman fuel. Works very well. I also wanted a larger cup, so it fits very nicely into the cheap Musa aluminum cup. Tin foil for a base or windscreen lighter in the kit. As I say, this burns white gas. Show a video. It actually worked very well. We are heating our water for dinner on an old Svea 123 stove. The stove was originally invented for the Swedish soldiers. This one here is 40 or 50 years old. It actually belonged to my father. And unbelievably, it started right up and it works just great. You can see how hot that is under there. The downside to this stove is it's very heavy. This cook kit, as I've put it together, weighs 1 pound 18 ounces or 34 ounces. That's just pretty dang heavy for a cook kit. And the other downside is that the fuel doesn't last very long. We were able to boil enough water for dinner and then boil water for cocoa to have later in the evening. But when we got up in the morning and I tried to make coffee, and guess what? I was out of fuel. And I had filled the tank all the way up before I left. So I really thought that it would last a lot longer than that. So as an ongoing solution for a backpacking stove, I don't think that this is going to work. The other kit that I brought along was this semi-homemade kit. I brought along with me this Budweiser beer bottle, aluminum beer bottle stove that I had made. I found that it didn't work very well. It actually burned the fuel too fast, and I had a hard time getting it to bloom or to get the jets of fire coming around the ring. So that was pretty much a fail because we really couldn't even get it to boil water. The kit itself, again, the Imusa cup, and made a cozy for that cup. One thing I really did like was how that cozy worked. The cook kit itself, got a little scrubbing pad with it. I made a lid for it out of a Budweiser aluminum bottle. In the kit, two different pot holders that I wanted to try. One is this style here to pick it up. Another style is made from Reflectix. You can pick it up that way. Bottle for the fuel, lighter. Here was the second version of the stove that I put together using an aluminum drink bottle. This stove really works great. Cost $1 for the aluminum bottle at the dollar store. And this is my Foster's pot that I made. There are videos out there about how to take a Foster's beer can and make a cook pot out of it. A really good solution for starting out in camping because it's very lightweight. This only weighs 10.4 ounces, the whole kit, without fuel, which is about 2/3 of the weight of the Svea cook set that I brought. And so it weighs like 23.6 ounces less than that Svea stove. So unfortunately, my actual alcohol stove didn't work, so that was a bit of a fail. But I think as a low-cost, lightweight option, this is really great. I think probably for me, though, I will wind up going to a canister stove and go in that direction. So for my sleep system, for my little test camp, I brought along a very lightweight sleep system that I made, and it was a really unusually warm February. So the low was only supposed to be down in the 50s. So what I did was I took a down throw from Costco. So this was a $20 down throw. And I had seen several videos about how to make this into an overquilt. So you simply sew along the bottom to seal up the foot box, and then sew up here about 24 inches or so to, make your foot box so your feet aren't coming out of that. And then you leave this open, and then you pull this whole thing over you to sleep in. And it's supposed to get you down into the mid-50s in terms of temperature range. Just to be sure maybe that I had a couple of extra degrees, I also made a polyester sleeping bag liner. So now I've got invested between the two of these things roughly $25 and a little bit of time. So I had made a pretty inexpensive sleep system thus far. And I had hoped that this would give me 3 to 5 degrees of extra warmth in this liner. In addition, my pad was an old REI light core 1.5 inch pad. And here was the problem. First of all, the temperature, it didn't stay in the 50s. It actually dropped into the 40s, and that was just too cold for this sleep system. Problem number 2 is my old pad here leaked. So essentially I was sleeping right on the ground, which added, number 1, to the cold factor, and then number 2, it was very uncomfortable, and my hips were pretty darn sore by the time I got up. There was just not enough padding here. So my initial thoughts on what I'd use for a sleeping system went pretty bad. Fortunately, since I was car camping, I was able to just throw in the back a cheap old sleeping bag that I had that's really not very good for backpacking because it's just too big and it's just not going to get you down to a very low temperature. But by putting the liner and the down overquilt inside of this, I actually stayed warm enough. So from a temperature perspective, I was okay. From a comfort perspective, not very good. So I'd have to chalk this whole thing up as a fail, because had I not been car camping and had this along, it would have been a pretty miserable night to be both cold and uncomfortable. But that's what this trip was about, learning and improving. So here was the tent that I took with me on this little camp out. And it's a Eureka Solitaire. It's a one-man tent. Comes in at about 3.12 ounces in the stuff sack with the poles. Frankly, I could make it smaller than it is. This stuff sack is a little bit large. I'll show you a video in terms of what it looks like set up, and then I'll tell you my thoughts about it.
Both Brian and I have the Eureka Solitaire single person tent. First time that we've used them. Our initial reaction is that they're probably great to have as an extra tent, or if you really want something light, because they're only about 2.9 pounds as I recall. But at the end of the day, they're a little snug inside. So, the Eureka tent.
You know, it's a nice little tent. At 3 pounds 12 ounces, it's not very heavy. So, you know, it's not a bad tent. What I found was that it's just a little too small for me. I want a tent that I can sit up in, and in this guy here, I'll tell you, you got in there and you wanted to change your clothes, and you were all crunched over like this, trying to take your shirt off or your pants off, and it was just uncomfortable. My friend Brian, who I was camping with, we both got these same tents at the same time. Heck of a deal. I think they were $39 a piece or something like that on the Eureka clearance site. And so it was a great price. Didn't cost us much to experiment with them, but like Brian said, when I was all crunched down trying to change my clothes, and I could hear him grunting and groaning over in his tent, and he finally yelled, "Ray, we need bigger tents." And I think that's the conclusion that I have too with regard to this Eureka. It's just a little bit too small to be comfortable. So, what did I learn from my little camping experiment? First of all, I learned that I still love being outdoors. I love hiking. I think the whole backpacking experience is great. It's a wonderful way to get out and clear your mind a little bit and get as close to nature as you can. So I really enjoyed the whole experience. So what that tells me then is that, you know what, I need some new equipment. I've already started to solve some of that in terms of my sleep system. I think that the down over quilt that I made and the sleeping bag liner, I think are going to serve me well. Wasn't much of an investment there, and I think in warm weather camping, those will be just perfect. I bought a 20-degree down sleeping bag from Outdoor Vitals, which I did a review on. I think it's a great bag. I'll include that link below. I need a new tent. I just need something bigger. Probably a two-person tent is going to be more suitable for me. I just want the extra space. That little Eureka one-man tent's a great little tent. It kept me sheltered, but it's just too small. So I need a two-man tent. You know, if I have to give up another pound in weight, I'm willing to do that for the comfort and the space of a tent. Definitely a new cook set. I want something that's light, but yet will be functional and do what I need it to do. I think the alcohol stove setup for me probably is not ideal. Just for me personally, I know a lot of people use them, but for me, I think I'm going to go the canister route. That's a little bit more dependable. However, I may very well bring along just the alcohol stove itself and some alcohol just as a backup. You know, you're probably adding 3 ounces to your pack weight, maybe 4. Well, that's fine. You know, to have a backup cook system, that's pretty cheap insurance. The other thing I learned is that I think I'm going to start dehydrating some of my own meals. We had some meals from the company that makes freeze-dried camping meals, and they were good. But boy, those darn things are expensive. You know, a serving for 2 is $9.99 to $11.99. Not that that's crazy expensive, but I honestly think that I can dehydrate my own food. I'm just going to give it a try. If I save money doing it, great. And I'll know exactly what the ingredients are. I'll feel better about that. So we'll see how that goes. So love this camping and backpacking. I plan on continuing to do it. I hope you learned a little something from my experience as a kind of an older first-time backpacker and camper, and what I learned from this. And thanks for watching the video. I appreciate it. I'd love it if you subscribe. And please, if you see this and you've got any comments you'd like to leave about what I did during this trip, or what kind of equipment I should think about, particularly for cook sets and tents, because I haven't bought those yet, I would appreciate any advice that I can get. So thanks again. Appreciate you watching.